I'd never write off a game before playing it, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about how Scribblenauts Showdown, Warner Bros.' latest party game, sounded on paper. Party games are such a difficult genre to get right. Just look at Mario. I could write a book about all the genres he's nailed, and yet even his party games have struggled to make their mark. The Scribblenauts franchise has such a great concept of write anything, solve everything, that creating something unique shouldn't be a problem. But making something that works in a party setting, well, that's another story. The main attraction to Scribblenauts Showdown, as the name would suggest, is the Showdown mode. You can consider this to be the board game mode, where 2 to 4 players or 1 player versus CPU will go head to head in a race to the end of a small, medium or large board, all of which are actually the same board with more or less spaces. Unfortunately, unlike Mario Party, the spaces on the board have no impact on the way the game plays out. Instead, each turn, players will draw cards into their hand and then decide which one to play. The majority of cards will move the player 2 to 4 spaces forward or draw extra cards into your hand. These effects can take place immediately, or in most cases, minigames will be played out to decide who gains its effect. All minigames are a 2-player affair, where the card player's opponent is selected at random. It feels like a party game that was cooked up for 2 players, but they forgot they were having guests, so they threw 2 more players into the pot at the last minute. The games you and your guests will be playing come in 2 flavours. Speedy, which are quick gimmicky games, normally involving more waggle than a dog's tail after the word walkies, and Wordy, where you'll write objects into the game world that can, but rarely do, affect gameplay. Speedy often feels like the worst of waggle games, with digging a hole, hitting a piñata, or chopping a tree being the leading offenders. Fortunately, Wordy games are a little more on the creative side, though objects you create can have very little impact on gameplay, such as changing your costume in the DDR game, changing your fish bait in the Frogger game, or changing your mount in the Flappy Bird game. Additionally, the wheel system you use for typing out words is a fast and efficient solution, much better than a full screen keyboard. As Santa and a sloth race down the obstacle course with my partner and I perched atop, I realised this is just the type of whimsical fun I want from a Scribblenauts party game. The problem is, there are only 27 games. Less than half of those are wordy games, and only a handful of those wordy games are worth the paper they're scribbled on. When put alongside games like Mario Party The Top 100, this just feels lazy and a completely missed opportunity to take the concept of Scribblenauts and run with it. When you've had enough of the board game, you can check out the Versus mode. This is basically the board game minus the board and 2 players. Here you will select from Wordy, Speedy, or both minigames to be played at random. You also choose from 5 to 25 rounds, and the player who wins the most rounds is victorious. Additionally, free play can be selected from here, to freely play minigames to your heart's content. Though I should mention that playing any mode containing speedy games will require you to use detached Joy-Con. I wouldn't even bother trying to connect the Pro Controller to play any of the game modes, as if a metaphor about me and this game, the controller simply doesn't connect. If you're in the mood for some more traditional Scribblenauts, you can dive into the Sandbox. There are 8 diverse locations, each with 10 problems that need solving. My favourite thing about the Sandbox was having the option to play in the sand with a second player. I did at least half of the Sandbox with my partner, which meant we played for about an hour and a half together. Yes, it's that short. Of course, your time will depend on your puzzle solving skills, of which I thought mine were pretty good. That was until I came up against the madness that this game calls puzzles. In previous titles, puzzles had an open-endedness to them. You might find a gap that needs crossing. Will you make a bridge? Catch a rocket over? Or even just give yourself the ability to fly? My interpretation was an obstacle was created first, and it's up to you to find an answer. With this new game, it feels like the answer was created first, leaving little room for creativity when finding a solution. The puzzles in Showdown are not spelled out in an obvious way. Rather, 10 cryptic clues are given for each zone, and every time you want to reread a clue, you will need to mash through the menus to find them. If that's not frustrating enough, wait till you try solve one of these. At one point, I met a businessman who had a dog silhouette in a speech bubble above his head. I also had a clue that read, man's best friend, with the mention of a businessman being lonely and wanting a friend. I'll give you one guess to what he wanted. If you had said dog, then you're as wrong as I was. Luckily, you can use star rights, the game's currency, to buy additional hints. The hint informed me to give him not just any dog, but a breed of dog that you think he might like. Luckily, you can create a time machine, which I use to travel back in time, then give what I can only assume is the businessman's father the infertile adjective, preventing him from ever being born. Once you've exhausted the game's content and you're still up for more punishment, then you can start hunting for awards. These are basically the game's trophies, or achievements, which are actually a welcome addition, and if I'd enjoyed the game more, I'd definitely work towards putting these on my shelf. The last thing I want to talk about, or the first thing you should actually do, is create a character, or avatar. It's a shame when I have to say my favourite feature of this game is creating an avatar, but there's no lack of options when it comes to customization. Most customizations will cost star rights, but since they're earned through just about anything that involves playing the game, I generally had an abundance of them. Scribblenauts Showdown has failed at so much, I don't even know where to start. It's a bad party game, and an even worse Scribblenauts game. The Sandbox mode failed to recreate what made the franchise so special in the first place, and the party mode fails at making a fun or unique party game. It feels like they caught the tail end of a good idea with the wordy mini games, but pinning a tail on an ass doesn't make it a donkey.